The Ben Askren and Jake Paul fight. I mean, I just did a video last night and it's getting a ton of views. My take on that. I love doing these videos where the title was why Ben Askren will beat Jake Paul. And like when I'm so confident with the title, everybody has to watch it. But I always put myself out there because if I'm wrong, I'm going to get trashed when this fight's over with. And I always do it with the underdog. Always.
You're going to get trashed on that if you get lost.
But I see him winning the fight.
Yeah, I respect that. I love a good underdog.
What do you think? How do you think it's going to go?
It's tough, man. I'll tell you what. I can't hate on either guy. They're both, what a win-win. You're fighting either, if you're Jake Paul, you're fighting Ben Askren for multi-million dollars after knocking out an NBA guy, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're Ben Askren, you're fighting a YouTube guy who just knocked out a basketball player. You're getting paid multi-millions. You just lost to Jorge Masvidal from a flying knee. You know, it's like, who are these guys? You know, but credit to them. I'm not a hater, man. You're making millions of dollars and off a half of a fight, like Connor says, you know, boxing is half of a fight, big-ass gloves. Askren's used to a lot worse than some, whatever they are, 10, 12-ounce gloves. Who knows what the hell they are. But, you know, a boxing match. They're getting paid multi-million dollars. Credit to both of them for the level of fight that is, for the amount of money they're getting. Big upside. So, yeah, I would say it's tough, man. You got to ask him, how do you not root for him if you're an MMA guy, right? You got to hope he does it. But even if he does, it's like we're going to discredit this shit out of him anyway to say you beat up Ben Askren. You know, he's not a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
But if Ben Askren it's kind of a win-win and a lose-lose for both guys. Because you're going to win a bunch of money for fighting nobody. But once you win, you also won against nobody. So you're expecting this big hoorah, and they're just going to probably hit them both on at the finish line anyway. You know, they're just going to talk some shit no matter who wins. But, yeah, a lot of high stakes what is it like their reputations are both just on, this is a reputation fight, you know. They're both getting paid, but from what I'm seeing, some of the highlights, man, that kid Jake Paul looks like he's throwing some heat. It'd be interesting the first couple of rounds. I bet you how many rounds is it, by the way?
It's 8 rounds, 10-ounce gloves, and the weight limit's 200 pounds, and so Ben's going to be bigger.
200 pounds, man.
Ben's gonna. I think Jake Paul's around 185 or 89. I don't think he's over 190. So I think Ben will be a little bit bigger. And this is where it comes into play for me because, you know, Ben's a smart fighter who's an Olympian who's found a way to win against some of the toughest guys in the world. He's not going to go in there and swing wild like these other guys and leave his chin open. And he's also got 10-ounce gloves to cover up and protect himself. And I don't think Jake Paul can punch through a 10-ounce glove and knock out Ben Askren, if not even knock him out with the 10-ounce glove with no glove in the way. You know, he's never been knocked out with a glove. And so, you know, I think that the smart game plan would be to, you know, keep his hands up and kill those first 2 rounds off and not try and do anything crazy and let Jake Paul kind of punch himself out and then just close the distance with this wrestling footwork, which is amazing. He gets in on guys all the time and then clinch the shit out of Jake Paul and dirty box him and just wear him down. Because let me ask your opinion on this, your professional opinion, because my take is in boxing it's happened. It hasn't really, because boxers get built up too. They fight a lot of scrubs. Many famous
100%.
Boxers fight a lot of scrubs to get to the top. But in MMA especially, like especially in the beginning when you have your first fights, the hardest part is digging deep when you get tired. And until you experience getting tired during a fight, having to dig deep and going through that, you can't overcome it and get better for the rest of your career. And Jake Paul hasn't experienced that yet. And I think this might be the fight where he gets pushed to that point where he's tired, maybe panicky, and then what's going to happen at that point? I don't see how a guy who's never had to push through it in a fight before is going to just, you know, have complete composure and fight like a pro for 8 rounds. And you know what I mean? I imagine he's probably going to get tired and panic.
Yeah, and to your point, like I believe Teddy Atlas said the same thing about Mike Tyson, right? Like he ain't really been in more than 3 fights in his career. He just mauls everybody,
right?
You know, and it's kind of to your point, like when have you felt resistance and had to push through that? It's tough to deal with. I felt a lot in my last fight. I know I could deal with resistance, man. I'm always gonna be there till the last bell. That's one thing I've been aware of in my career. You know how bad I want it, and you know, so maybe Jake's got him in the gym because he looks like he's putting in some good gym wars. That'll do it. That won't do it all, but that'll give you a little taste. But there's nothing like that when you feel the pressure of the camera and have to rebound after, you know, blowing your load in that first or a couple rounds, you know, and just getting that adrenaline dump. There's nothing like that while having to continue to perform. But yeah, I would say that's a smart game plan if that's what Askren's looking to do. I would say definitely try to tie him up, wear out his arms, take some of the damage. I think it'll be exciting for the first couple of rounds. I definitely think, though, like to your point, later in the fight, I don't know if these guys are built for 10. Not even Askren's used to 10 rounds, so or 8 to 10 rounds, however many that's going to be. It's going to be up there. So the last couple of rounds, if it gets that far, I could see it being a little sloppy, to be honest. But yeah, Askren's found a way to win. He's a winner, right? He finds ways to win. The little different rule set, skill set. It'd be interesting, man. I don't want to just knock the Jake Paul kid because he's definitely motivated, highly motivated. He talks a lot. They both talked a lot of shit, so they're putting in the work. It'll make for a fun fight, man. Like I watched the last one. It was funny watching. As bad as it was seeing the basketball player get knocked out. It's entertainment, man. It's just 2021, the fight game. And I don't even want to tell you what I got paid to fight Max Holloway, but I would have took, the money that these guys are getting to fight Ben Askren and Jake Paul. I can't discredit them for making money off a half of a fight, like I said. But that's all it is. I think it's pure entertainment and something to talk about. But they're definitely getting the eyes on it. And it's tough to pick one in that, man. I joke around and say I want like a double knockout but that's just me being bitter about the money they're getting paid.
Yeah, of course. Well, they're still going to get that money if they get double knocked out. They're just going to have a little.
Yeah, they still get paid. They're both laughing to the bank.
And Jake's going to take it worse, man. I mean, you got to think about it like this. Yeah. Ben Askren was retired at home with his family, just had surgery, not thinking about fighting. So at the end of the day, he's just going to go home with extra money, and he's probably not going to care or think about this fight ever again. It's not like he's going to get beat up by 20 million of his followers on every time he makes a post or whatever. So, and everyone knows he's not a superior striker, so it's not like he's going to go out there and not look good and people's going to make fun of him. They know it's going to be that way. And I think that's what could be embarrassing for Jake Paul is if he gets tired and runs out of cardio in, say, rounds 3 or 4, he could have a very sloppy beatdown where he's kind of like covering up, panicking, maybe running, and lose by TKO or lose by decision by a guy who's just chasing him down, beating him. And Ben doesn't need the cardio. He's got the mindset to push through, even if he does run out of cardio, even if he isn't in shape 100%. For 8 rounds.
100%. Yeah, he's got that build that even if the cardio, he knows how to push on the gas when there's no gas left, 100%. And that could pay dividends in the fight. It probably will, but good point on that as far as Askren not needing it. He's coming out of retirement. He's going to be a winner no matter what with the money. No one expects him to win. If he goes out and even has a half good performance, then credit to him, and like you're saying, if Jake Paul, who's actually trying to build a career out of this, loses, well, you could forget about that probably, aside from the circus views who he would fight next.
Back to YouTube. I think
that the hype chain would have to stop, right? I mean, who would he fight next?
Back to gamers.
And no one would really.
Back to gamers.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is with Jake Paul, like, you got to understand too, the pressure. Like, not only do you always feel pressure, like up throughout my entire career, when I've had the big fights, like the #1 contender fights or whatever, I still felt the pressure, as seasoned as I was, as many fights as I had. Now, whether it cost me to lose the fight or win the fight still or whatever the case, I had to dig deep because the pressure of being in a big fight against a big opponent on the big stage does weigh on you. And then when you see these videos of Jake Paul and he's like with his friends and he's so excited when he looks at the TV and sees his picture and Snoop Dogg's out there and he's going to be there. He's so excited that he's going to be on this fight card and it's going to be so big and he's going to be the main event. That's going to translate to pressure during the fight. Like right now, It's cool and it seems awesome like it was when I was having these big fights or bigger fights. But when you get out there, and especially if things start not going your way, it turns into pressure. And I think the press conference showed that. And me and Anthony Smith had a great conversation about that, which Chael Sonnen did an entire segment about. But it was to the point of, Ben Askren was so comfortable being at this level. This is nothing for him. He was at the Olympics. This is another day for him. So he's not going to have that extra pressure. And at the press conference, I think he won with flying colors as far as looking comfortable, composed. Jake Paul looked very uncomfortable. And then the palm to the face, 2 points. 2 points in this. And in the video I just posted, I only listed 1 point, and that was, I'm not a street fighter, and I'm repeating myself if you watch this video, but I'm not a street fighter. I'm not trying to get in fights or fight outside the octagon or the ring. But if somebody threw their hand in my face and shoved my face back, I assure you, the last thing I would do is slap them on the ass. Like, that's 100%. That would be the last thing. And Jake Paul panicked. He didn't know what to do. And it wasn't like he couldn't He was afraid to touch Ben Askren because of the rules or because there could be a fine.
Yeah.
He touched him, but he touched him on the ass, which, I know Jake's new to sports, but that usually means good job, and so it's like that wasn't a real big comeback in that regard. And then to flip it, Ben Askren put his hand in Jake's face, shoved it, and knew Jake wasn't going to do anything, and then just walked away.
Turned around.
That's confidence. Like, he owned Jake Paul because he knew that he wasn't going to do shit, and he did it anyway, showed no care. No, I would be a little bit nervous, especially like someone like crazy like Jake Paul, and there's nobody around to break it up, that if I put my hand in his face and shoved it, I might get punched, or I might get tackled, or I might get pushed and go off balance and fall down and be embarrassed. Ben didn't give a shit, and it happened exactly how Ben thought because Jake didn't do anything about it. And I think that kind of ownage is what's going to take over in the fight when Jake gets into a position where he's a little bit uncomfortable and confused and might not know what to do.
Yeah, it's weird how little moments like that can magnify in a fighter, or little seed he planted psychologically, and how that builds. And that's kind of what you got with Poirier and McGregor in a small sense too. Not to jump topics, but these guys are just doing psychological warfare however they can. It's not just when when they lock up in the cage, especially when you get a long tour of trying to promote the event. But it's very interesting. They pushed his face and he turned around because now he's putting Logan in a situation where if he hits somebody, he's not facing him. It's kind of like you sucker punched him, right?
Yeah.
He just muffed his face, which I do love a good face muff, right?
Yeah.
But if that ever happens to me, the last thing I'm going to do, like you said, slap him in the ass or hit him with a weird body. I don't know what that was, but I'm definitely going to lose the opportunity to fight this guy, or he's not going to be able to fight after the shot I gave him after that. No one's ever muffing my face like that and getting away with it, especially if no one's around to stop me.
I mean, he chased him down to slap him in the ass. Then he stopped dead in his tracks and started talking trash, but not continuing to follow Ben. So it was a very weird situation that showed a lot of confusion and a lot of holding himself back for not because he was scared, but because he just didn't. Maybe he was. I don't know. I think it showed a lot.
No, he's not. Generally speaking, a fighter, you do that to a fighter, they're going to fight you. You're going to be in a fight. Like, it's a fight. But if there's guys, there's a difference. I mean, I always try to say it too. It's like you train MMA, but I don't necessarily say that like you're a fighter, or like you could say they can push through that resistance. It takes a different type of breed. Some of these guys are really good at training the sport, and they're talented, but I don't know if I'd call them maybe a fighter at heart. It's different. And I think, you might have caught a glimpse of that. Maybe he was a good kid. Maybe never been in no street fights. Maybe he's only been in the octagon, the rings, and things like that, where it's been, it's a little different, man. And not to discredit that, you don't have to be some hard guy to come out of the streets to make it in the fight game. That's definitely not what it is. But it tells a story. It definitely does. And the last thing, like you're saying, I would ever do after getting my face muffed is go up and have verbal exchange after a physical altercation. You know what I'm saying? It's like I reciprocate the level that these guys take it at. So if you want to get physical, it's going to be physical. You want to keep it verbal, maybe I'll entertain that. I'll keep it verbal, maybe jab back you, but mostly I'm saving all your words for the fight. Mostly that's like Bill Belichick said, we keep the locker room material to ourselves ideally, but it's tough, man. We try to promote a fight, a big fight. At the end of the day, the more shit you talk, the bigger that bottom dollar is going to be. And I try not to discredit the guys that go out and make these bold predictions and talk that smack and do their part to sell a fight, knowing that they're selling out in a sense, like these guys that you could tell it's disingenuous, it's not authentic. But at the end of the day, it's selling the fight. So knowing what they're doing, it's, you kind of try to give them a pass, knowing it's part of the game and they're getting paid out of it. But I always prefer to try to keep it real, authentic. And that's just the way I'll always keep it, man. I don't know. So with situations like that, I definitely can't level with them. I try to call it for what it is.
And real quick, one last point I want to get your opinion on. What is your opinion on the difference of boxing footwork and wrestling footwork? I heard Ben Askren say that he got something like 48 of 50 takedowns in his career when you look at all of his fights. That's incredible. In my opinion, it's a lot harder to get in on somebody without them seeing you than, like I said, boxing footwork. So how do you think that comes into play, considering in wrestling, you have to almost go chest to chest and almost kiss somebody on the face without them seeing you, without them knowing you're coming to get that takedown. And Ben is an expert at that. How do you think that's going to play into this fight, even though it's not boxing footwork, but yet he can move good, he can judge movement, he can go to places where you don't expect him to be, and he can get there without seeing him get there. How do you think that's going to translate in this fight against someone like Jake Paul, who's inexperienced?
Yeah, angles are angles, right? And you find that they transition a lot through the sports, fighting or not. But, he knows how to capitalize off a good angle. The circumference radius where he's going to be trying to close now is a little further away. But, I mean, that being said, he was able to duck under Masvidal's punches. He timed the jab, though, shot real well.
Yeah.
He just, you can't throw flying knees in boxing. So I don't think he'll have too tough of a time if he does choose to sell out and just bend at the hips, and duck underneath the heavy shots of Paul. But the footwork, yeah, like you're saying, he knows how to move. He's elusive with the movement. Now he just have to figure out how to capitalize off it with strikes instead of takedowns. But angles are angles, yeah.
All right. Well, so no prediction from you. So you're going to go political on me, and
I hate to do that.
What about a guess?
I want to stick my neck on the line so all these people could chop my head off too. I usually only do it for the betting website, so when they ask me to make a pick, and even then I get roasted. I've only gone 1 for 1. I don't know if I've ever gone 2-0. I'll stick my neck out on the line.
Not based on friendship, not based on experience of knowing the guys, not based on their reputation, not based on anything except a gut feeling only. What do you think you're going to see at the end of the fight when they announce the winner? Like, just what is your gut feeling? That's all.
All right, so not sticking with Askren because he's a mixed martial artist. Man, I do. There's two parts of me, man. I always say whenever I make a prediction about a fight, I like to say it one of two ways. If Askren can, cut off those angles,
that's
small,
fine.
make it a dirty boxing fight, favors him. And then if Paul could leave it on the outside distance and land those heavy shots, when Askren sometimes closing that distance, it's a war zone. So if Paul can make it ugly on him closing that distance before he gets into initiating that clinch, it'll be a rough day for him as well. But
we can leave it at that if you want. That's fine. We can leave it at that. I mean, that makes sense, and it's possible. It's
yeah, but I'll stick my neck on. Honestly, and I don't want to say, and this makes me disgusted. I haven't even gave a prediction on it, but I guess I would say, as bad as that is, man, I think that this kid Jake Paul might actually do it. And I agree with you that Askren's a winner and he finds a way to win. It's just a different rule set, and I think this kid's really going all in. Kind of like you said, I think my mindset on it is leaning towards the trajectory, right? You said like the veteran on his way out or the guy on his way in.
Absolutely.
And I think like with the Rob and Garbrandt, I feel like Askren's too far down that line where he's kind of been comfortable for a while. I don't know how much that competitive edge he has left. You saw it. He doesn't care. He's smushing his face. He's not pressured. Sometimes that can bite you in the ass if you don't feel that pressure. And, I think Jake Paul, even though he's going to maybe fight scared, a scared fighter is sometimes dangerous. He's feeling all the pressure. He's training hard. Maybe I would lean towards him getting it done and then just seeing that circus act go on a little longer and who he fights next, man, that money train. But I wouldn't be upset if it went the other way. I might be happy.
No, I agree. There's nothing wrong with that. And to be honest with you, I mean, you're going with what every other site's going with. Everyone has Jake Paul as a favorite for a reason, and that's because how dangerous of a fighter he is. And I said it was cowardice what he's doing because he did pick an MMA fighter who had the least amount of boxing experience, who was retired, who's coming off hip replacement surgery, who isn't thinking about fighting. So for those exact reasons, it's very likely he possibly could get that punch because he's fighting a guy that's very,
the weak move,
unready to get in there and fight. He wasn't expecting to fight. So
the smallest guy in the group. Call him the smallest guy.
It's possible.
There's respect in that, but smart, but a cowardice. I agree with you, man. But I try not to sound like a bitter hater. Over here, like these guys getting paid, man. Credit to both of them. I wish I was getting paid that amount to fight that caliber of an opponent. But credit to both them to find themselves in that opportunity. They did what they had to do to get it. Now, let's just hope it all goes off without a hitch. I don't think it should be any weight-making issues at 200 pounds. Man, Ben Askren must be loving that. He doesn't have to cut weight. He's making 10 times the amount for half of the fight.